Welcome to the Best Music Podcast. My name is Dan the Music Man, and this week's featured guest is Cédric Hanriot. Cédric Hanriot is a French pianist, bandleader, music composer, arranger, sound designer, music producer, and educator who has worked on Grammy Award-winning projects. He worked on 8 songs on the Grammy-winning album Beautiful Life by Dianne Reeves. He is a recipient of the prestigious Fulbright scholarship used towards music studies at the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Cédric has collaborated with some of the following international music icons and legends: Dianne Reeves, John Patitucci, Gregoire, Maret, Terri, Lyne, Carrington, Donny, McCaslin, Clarence, Penn, Terreon, Gully, Jeff Ballard, and Frank Angoulon, just to name but a few. Performances include Kennedy Center in Washington, Tanglewood Jazz Festival, and the Iridium in New York City, as well as the Says You talk show on NPR. His social media, facebook.com/Cédric Hanriot, that's CEDRICHANRIOT, youtube.com/Cédric Hanriot Music. Website, CédricHanriot.com, CEDRICHANRIOT.com. Instagram, Cédric Hanriot _piano. Cédric, thanks so much for coming on. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Well, thank you, Dan. My pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So we'll start with a couple warm-ups just to get us going, and then we'll be off and at it. So what is your primary instrument? I think we might have already answered that by calling you a French pianist, but maybe talk a little bit about the different types of keyboard you play, because you don't just play piano.
Yeah, I started off like playing keyboards in a rock band, funk band. So I would say now my main instrument is piano, but before it was more like keyboard. So I started playing keyboards, and then I don't know, for some reason I moved to the piano, the acoustic piano. There's so much to do with the piano. So yeah, but I do keyboards on top of piano. Obviously, I mean it's just they're just tools for me. It's
absolutely.
So,
and sometimes you actually literally put a keyboard on top of a piano and play both at the same time.
Yeah, well, this is this is what we have to do.
So, over the past couple days, what music have you been listening to? Have any songs struck you or any albums really stood out to you just in the past day or two?
Oh, Ravel. I mean, it's probably not surprising as a jazz musician, but I've been listening to Gaspard de la Nuit. Because I'm also teaching a little bit on top of my instrumentalist career, and I'm actually doing like a class about harmony class about impressionism. And so,
where are you teaching this?
At the American School of Paris, in Paris.
Very cool.
And so I made up a curriculum, a harmony curriculum, like first part of the 20th century, harmony. And obviously Ravel is one of the people we're studying. And so I was just listening that, and also Poème de Mallarmé, Trois Poèmes de Mallarmé by Ravel also. It's so beautiful. I mean, I don't know. So this is what I listen. And if we want to talk about jazz, I've been listening mostly old jazz, like Art Tatum recently, or Teddy Wilson. Errol Garner, obviously, so less modern players than I used to.
What is your favorite book on music? It could be a method book, could be a biography.
Good question. Well, I guess Miles's book, like biography, was pretty good. I think I read it many times. What else did
That's
I like?
Miles Davis for listeners. Whenever we say Miles, we mean Miles Davis.
Yeah, by Quincy Troop, I think this is the name of the dude who wrote it. What else? I don't know, man. There's so many great books. I read something. I don't remember the title, but again, it was for pianists. but I read a book, that was interviews from jazz pianists from the whole history of jazz. And so you have Wynton Kelly talking about Herbie, for instance, or talking about the future or the past. And it's interesting to know that, for instance, Bill Evans really liked to play on form and really didn't want to play free. And so it's very interesting to have, because it's very upfront. It's not like they're not trying to please people. They just say what they think and what they feel. So I don't remember the name of the book, but it's a very interesting book. Interviews compiled in one book.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating for anyone who's a musician or interested in music to read, because it gets you a much more candid understanding than, let's say, a newspaper interview where someone might be sort of putting on their be on their best behavior and say the best words they can about themselves and other artists. You kind of get a peek behind the curtain into really sort of the thought processes and the artistic processes of these artists.
Definitely. And it made me think of another book I read, Conversation with Maurice Ravel. Again, it's about Maurice Ravel.
Conversations with Maurice Ravel, translated.
Yeah, the letters that he sent to Stravinsky and all his contemporaries. And he was talking, he was writing the concerto or whatever. He wasn't feeling good. And so, and he's writing in old French. So it's really cool to read that as a French dude. It's like, wow, this word, I barely know what it means. But anyway, so this kind of very intimate letters are very fascinating and interesting for me, as you said before, to get really deeper into the artist.
And how about a favorite film score that you've heard recently?
That's a good question, man.
Or just something that popped out at you.
Let me see what I like. Oh, I like Traffic. You know Traffic? It's an old movie, unfortunately. It's 20 years ago, but I really like it because this is really the kind of music for movies I love to do. It's like kind of samples, some loops, some production, electronic production, and on top of it, there's some roads, playing some textures and some improvised things, but in the background. So it doesn't sound really jazz, but it sounds like playing by real musicians, like a little jam, but at the same time, there's a direction. And Traffic. I really love that.
Awesome. The soundtrack for Traffic.
Yeah, well.
So, Cédric, you were not always planning on becoming a musician.
True.
How did you get your start? Can you tell us about your first college degree that you got, and then what the process was like, either in understanding or self-realizing that really music was the way to go? Can you talk about that period of your life and what happened there?
Yeah. Yes, so I was studying engineering, electrical engineering, you say in English. And so I got a master's degree in that, and I was pretty good because I really liked it. And it was also related somehow to music because we were designing reverbs, we were designing sound processing effects. So it was very interesting on a mathematical point of view, obviously, not on the creative way. And then I had always wanted to play an instrument and play music. It was a dream. I was almost dreaming every night of seeing myself on the stage and playing the keyboard. And funny story. Yeah, it's a true story. And funny story, when I was in high school, so when I was 15 or something like that, I had neighbors around my parents' house who already had a band, and they played kind of professionally. They had a manager, they played a lot of concerts, and they were doing funk, kind of, Red Hot Chili Peppers or stuff like that. So obviously they didn't have a keyboard. And I came to see them, and I said, well, you know what? I want to join your band. And I was I don't know if I would do that nowadays, but I was like, whatever, I'm going to try. So they said, well, they weren't really convinced about that. But one of them gave me a tape, cassette, as we call it. Maybe you know what it is, huh? Cassette.
Google it if you don't know.
I did some overdubs of keyboards. I had a very keyboard, and I don't know how I managed that, but I did a few gimmicks on top of it. And then I brought the tape back, and the musicians were like, "Wow, that sounds interesting. That sounds unique." I mean, because Red Hot Chili Peppers or fusion band like that, they usually don't have a keyboard player. So it brought something different to the table, and from then on, I joined the band and we toured. And this is my first experience as a musician, touring with better musicians that I was at that time. And so I learned a lot. And we rehearsed almost every day. Not every day because I was at school, but at least twice a week, per week, at least.
So you're in high school, and during high school, you're going on tour with a band, which is not everyone's experience.
That's true. So I still, it's. I mean, it was for me the end of an era that I don't think we will live again, because it was very easy to put together tours. There were a lot of café concert, we call that in France. I don't know if you know what it is, but it's just bars who organize concerts. So it was very easy to tour, and so to play, and then to get better, to improve, and also to build an audience, fan base. So all that combined, rehearsing, playing concerts, also working on my studies, obviously. I was very busy, but I loved it, because when the weekend was coming, I was like, we're going to play. Where are we going to play this weekend? Or maybe if we didn't play, we rehearsed. And so I think we rehearsed in the middle. It was a Wednesday, and then we played or rehearsed during the weekend. So at least 2 or 3 days per week, we were playing music. And then when I did my master's degree, I was at the faculty, at la fac. So I had more time. So we could sometimes rehearse afternoons during the weekend. So
while you
more
were
flexible.
Sorry, can you say that again?
I said I was more flexible, and I think everybody else was more flexible. When we get the high school degree, we went to la fac. So it was like, it was less hours of studying and school. So
la fac, comment est-ce qu'on peut le dire en anglais?
It's university.
There we go. So la fac, we would say university or college here.
Exactly.
So you play and tour during high school. You play and tour during college while you're working on your master's in electrical engineering. You're still touring on weekends?
That's true. That's true. And to me, it was really a very difficult choice. For me, it was just kind of a hobby. I didn't see myself, as a professional musician, even though I was like, there was something happening when I was on stage that I would never experience. I mean, otherwise, everywhere else. So I was getting more and more connected to music and to the scene and stuff. But I was good, as I said, at school. So, and also my parents were very encouraging. Oh, you're going to be, an engineer. You're going to, and being a musician, obviously, is less considered than being an engineer. I mean, at least in my family.
Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was that you were feeling on stage that you were not feeling anywhere else?
Oh man, it's like almost I don't know, man. The time is stopping. It's still the same now. For instance, I was touring in Russia with the great Charles Turner, the American singer, in January. And I was super sick at some point of the tour, very sick. I think I've never been that sick. So I could barely stand up and go on stage. And I was like, well, and it was a duo concert that time, because the band, for some reason, rhythm section didn't show up. So I had to do.
Let's pause 1 second there. Let's explain to people. So the rhythm section would be drums, bass. We can also think of the rhythm section as being piano and guitar as well. But really just thinking of, it's supposed to be 4 of you on stage. Now the drummer and the bass player are not showing up, so it's just going to be you playing with a singer, duo. And you're sick as a dog.
And we never replied as a duo. I mean, it's not that different than with having a rhythm section, but still, I mean, you have to be comfortable playing duo, because it's a different setup.
And you need to do it. You have to play a different role, because if a bass player was there, the bass player would be playing bass parts. So now what you need to do is, you're sick as a dog. You're playing for a duo without any rehearsal, and now you need to, with your left hand, play what the bass player would be playing while also still sounding like a piano player up top and making the whole thing happen on a dime. Continue.
That's true. And it was at a Philharmonic, because this tour was great. We
No.
played at Philharmonic. So it was like, and it was crowded. I mean, our tour was crowded. So, you know what? At some point, I was like, I remember I was backstage and Charles said, "Are you going to be okay?" And we were looking at the clock as a watch. It was like 5 minutes before the show. And I was like, at this point, I either die or I go play. I mean, because I didn't really. And then just to say that when I arrived on stage, I was very shaking and stuff. And after a few minutes, I was like, again, the time stopped. It was like something magical that you explain. I don't know, you explained that. It's a mystery about that. And I think it's for every musician. It's the same, kind of deep connection with something you don't know. And then I got almost cured that night, because after the show, I was so energetic and people came to see me and say, "Wow, it was great." And I was like, yeah, I'm super in shape.
Wow.
True story.
Wow. So you're getting your master's degree.
Yeah.
You are touring on the weekends. You're having these experiences where time stops. You're feeling a connection like no other time in your life when you're on stage. So what flips the page to the next story? What is the moment or moments that change you from being an electrical engineer into being, I'm a musician, this is what I'm going to do?
I think there's probably many different things, but the two I really can explain or can think of are two people. There's one who's Joe Cocker, keyboard player, CJ Vanston, that I saw a lot on TV around that time. And he was playing kind of blues, jazzy stuff with a singer, and I really loved the way he played. And the second one was Herbie Hancock, obviously, that I discovered a little bit before with Headhunters and also with Mars and stuff. And so this is mainly the two people who really inspired me a lot. And I was trying to look up at them. Is it correct? I mean, I was admiring them, and I still, and to me it was like how you say, like a lead, like something I need to be. I need to follow their path in a way, And the funny story is that CJ, I met him in LA like a few years ago because I really wanted to meet the dude, and he's super nice dude. And Herbie, I worked for him in 2012, and I spent a month at his place in LA working as an assistant. And I actually talked with him, like had a Zoom call with him, with Herbie, last week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, yeah, that's awesome. But so just saying that the circle, we say in French, la boucle est bouclée. So I don't know you say in English.
The buckle is buckled.
Exactly. Thank you for translating. But I think you really need that. You as a musician, as a professional musician, you don't think first about money and how to survive. The first thing is a call or a calling.
Yeah, calling.
I think you said. Invocation. And something that you can't really explain. It's something that attracts you. It's like a virus. It's like a sickness in a way. you have it, and then you can't. It's a call. And I had it with those musicians, but it could be like, I don't know, it can come from many different situations. But this is my story, actually.
So you're getting your master's degree. You're listening to Herbie. You're listening to, I'm sorry, I forget his name, Joe Cocker's.
Joe Cocker, yeah.
Yeah, because you're listening to Joe Cocker and Herbie. And what happens?
What happens? Then... Oh, it's frozen. So I was still touring, with the band. And so when I got my master's, I said, okay, I'm gonna stop studying, or I'm not gonna find a job as an electrical engineer. I'm gonna follow music. And also the band was improving and developing. We recorded in a big studio in the south of France, and it was really working well. So, and from then on, I had some contacts, some network. I built a network in the east of France, and I started to work professionally with the organ. I played the organ. I never played the organ before, but the B3 organ, Hammond organ. So I played in a trio with a guitar player, so jazz trio, kind of blues, jazz, Kenny Burrell inspired thing. And on top of the funk band I was playing with, and I played salsa music. So I really learned from experience from then on. And I became professional. And I taught a little bit at MAI where we met in Nancy. And that's the beginning of 2000s,
But
and
between your master's degree in electrical engineering and the time you get your Fulbright scholarship to go to Berklee, what happens there? What gets you from France to Berklee?
True. Good question. I have a lot to say. So I worked professionally, as I said before. So I was doing pretty well. I mean, financially speaking and artistically speaking, I was improving myself. I was playing with better musicians all the time. So I was like just, trying to catch up with them. And so I was improving. I think that's the best way, because you still have the playfulness, like playing with musicians, and at the same time you're improving yourself. So I did that, and in 2005, I don't know, I think I saw a former teacher of mine who said, well, by the way, if just so there's a Fulbright grant that you can apply for, and if you get it, you can finance some studies in the States and stuff. I wasn't sure about that, but I said, well, why not? I'm going to try it, right? And then Berklee was the first name that came to my mind, because I didn't know of any other schools in the States. I mean, there's so many, but I just knew of Berklee. At least in France, we know a lot of Berklee. And so I applied, and thanks God, I got the grant. Because actually it was interesting. Because I think what the jury told me is like my case was very unique, as you described before. I had a master's degree, and and instead of doing that, I actually take another way, and I kind of started playing music late compared to a normal pianist, who does a conservatory and
when
stuff.
we say started playing piano late, can you describe what you mean by that?
I don't really know what age, but it was probably around 14 or 15, just, messing around with the keys. And then when I joined the funk band, that was my first time playing with musicians and playing chords, major, minor. I remember I was playing fifths first. And then I said, maybe I should add another note. Oh, it sounds good. This is really, it's as funny as it can sound. This is the truth. I mean, you can ask my friends from the band. So they will tell you that.
I want to break that down for listeners, what you just said and why I found that so funny. So there's two basic types of chords that all of our popular music is built off of, and those are major and minor chords. We think of major chords as sounding happy, minor chords as sounding sad. Now, to create a major chord, we take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We take 1, 3, 5, and we play them all together at the same time. Now, the 1, 5, the minor chord also has 1, 5, but instead of 1, 2, 3, it has 1, 2, 3. So it is 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. So what Cédric is talking about, he's talking about only playing 1 and 5 and not playing the 3 to make the chord major or minor, because when you first start out playing, you sometimes can't hear the difference or know the difference between a major or minor. So he was just playing, it's like imagine a sandwich, but there's nothing in the middle to tell you what kind of sandwich it is. It's just 2 pieces of bread. He was playing musical bread when he first started before he understood. And that's why I found that so funny, is because who would eat a bread sandwich? But it's all part of the learning experience, just so the listeners at home understand why that's so funny.
Yeah, but when I look back now, I'm just like, yeah, it's interesting. This is how how music was built, I guess, with fifths, and then we had a third, and maybe a 7 sometimes.
Yeah, looking back through history.
Right? It's how it is. But I mean, this way of learning has also some weaknesses. I mean, but maybe we'll talk about that afterwards, because obviously going to the conservatory and getting right away to the right technique things, to the sight reading, to the theory, it's also helpful somehow. So
Absolutely. I think a mix of both worlds is always the best move, because you need the experience, you need to do the transcription, the transcribing. You need to learn to play, you need to learn to listen, you need to learn your place, your instrument's role. What the piano's supposed to do in salsa versus what the piano's supposed to do in a rumba versus what the piano's supposed to do for Beethoven versus what the piano's supposed to do for Mozart. There's a lot of understanding there that doesn't necessarily come out of a book. It can, but the most effective way to get that type of learning is to learn songs note for note and go in and really listen to the great musicians that came before, and then copy it, understand it, synthesize it, make it your own, and then when it comes out, it'll be an expression of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. But I mean, life, I know some people who went to conservatory very young and they never had an experience as mine. So they're also complaining somehow. So there's nothing perfect in life. You just have to go and you have time to learn. And this is what I did afterwards when I went to Berklee. I went about theory, and it was more my formal school then.
Right. So you get your Fulbright scholarship. You're awarded a Fulbright scholarship to go to Berklee. Mm-hmm. You go to Berklee, so you have a master's degree in electrical engineering, and now you get a Fulbright scholarship. You go to Berklee. Now what happens?
Well, it was interesting because I didn't speak any word of English. Obviously, I was like totally lost, and I didn't know anybody there. So first of all, I said, okay, I'm gonna have roommates, but they have to be American because I want to live in America. I don't want to live with French people. So it was interesting because I don't know if maybe I can tell you my first day there. So I arrived in Boston by so airport. Then I took the metro, the subway to Alston. I think it's a little city next to Boston where I was staying. And then the lady who was one of my roommates, she opened the door and she was beautiful, first of all. So, and I had it was my first time kind of abroad, and especially in America. And she opened the door and I looked at her. I saw this beautiful lady in front of me sitting on the couch, and she spoke to me for 30 minutes and I could barely understand what she said. And I was like, yeah. And I was so tired already because I didn't get anything. And I was like, oh my God. So anyway, so that was interesting. So from then on, I worked on my English and on different things, but it was a very interesting experience.
So while you're at Berklee, you actually record an album called French Stories. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you record that with Terri Carrington and John Patitucci. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what it was like to be a student, but also be recording with these musical luminaries who are complete legends in and of their own?
True. So when I was at Berklee, for some teachers, you need to take auditions to study with some teachers. And it was the case for Terreon. So I did an audition, and then she said, send me also some music that you wrote. So I sent her that, and she replied, and she said, well, I like what you wrote and I like your playing. So let's come to my ensemble, and we're going to play also some pieces of what you wrote, of your original pieces in my ensemble.
So just to explain for listeners at home, you're auditioning for teachers to be in their ensemble. Their ensemble is going to basically be like a band of students that they're going to direct and run. And so you're going to learn maybe pieces they wrote, maybe pieces you wrote, but basically you're going to be playing or instructed by this particular musical icon once a week, every week,
Sure.
for that year. So that's an incredible thing that you were able to, an incredible situation you were able to participate in.
Yeah, and I knew her thanks to her, because obviously she was playing with him a lot in the 90s, and this is how I discovered her. And when I saw she was at Berklee, I was like, wow. And obviously I loved her playing, first of all, and then and obviously she loved Herbie too. So we had this common thing. So yeah, so it matched in a way, and from then on she became kind of my mentor, I would say. And when I wanted to record my album after Berklee, I talked to her and I said, well, would you be part of it? And I would love to do it with you, maybe as a trio. And then she said, yeah. And then we thought about a bassist, and we decided to get John, because she knew him a lot. And, she used to play a lot with him. So she said that would be the perfect match. And I remember I sent an email to John. And a few hours ago, I was on the street, in Boston, and I get a call from John and say, "So I saw you. we may record something together and stuff." And he was super nice. And then we met in New York with him, and we discussed about the music, and then we did the recording. So you wanted me to talk about the recording a little bit?
Yeah, I would love to really get into French Stories. This is the album you did in 2009, I believe.
Sure.
And really, it's like a collage of your history and your present moment at that time. It's really a fascinating album. Can you talk about the goal? What was the goal of what you were trying to translate in the album, what you were trying to communicate?
That's a good question. I think I was, as you said, it's a collage. I had so many different music in my mind that I really want to put on a whole album. I don't know if in terms of concept it's the best album, because it's a lot of diversity. It is a string quartet at some point. At some point there's a trio. Then there's a voice with piano. I mean, this is really the thought I loved, the sounds I loved that I put together. And I also wanted to have like French songs played by American musicians. I like this idea. So I brought some songs that I love, that I used to listen when I was younger here. French song from Jacques Brel and Gainsbourg and stuff. And I arranged them for that setup. So it's as you said, it's really, you understood the idea. It's a collage of all the music I loved then, and I still love.
Absolutely. So what was tracking the album like? Because there's a lot of layers going on, and there's some very interesting sound design, electronic modulation of sounds that happen on this. So what was the process like for recording a typical tune on the album? Would you guys go in as a trio and lay the sort of form down, and then you'd go back in and overdub with the other stuff?
So it was the best experience so far, because, okay, let's say, obviously I was a little bit stressed the days before, but the day of the recording, for some reason, I was super relaxed. So we had like 6 hours, so which is a very short time to record the whole album. It was in Somerville.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hang on. Hold on, because I've just been talking to people who take either 10 hours, 12 hours, or 2 days to record albums. Yeah. You're recording an entire album in 6 hours. Did you guys rehearse beforehand, or you going in the studio? You got 6 hours.
So
no rehearsal.
So let me tell you.
Yeah, please.
So I arrived there a few hours before Terri, Lyne, and John. Because I bought some candies and sweets and stuff. So to install, maybe to warm up a little bit, But I wasn't that stressed. Then John was driving from New York. He drove like 4 hours to come to. I offered him like a hotel room before, but said no, I'm gonna drive. Okay, sure. Terri Lyne arrived from a concert. She played a concert the night before, I think in Chicago or something. So she took the first plane to get to the recording. And so here they are. And what happened? Very simple. So we rehearsed a little bit. I talked a little bit about the tune. We do 2 or 3 takes. We didn't do more than 3 takes. next song, and then we move on, we move forward. And we did that for the 10 songs. I think one of the songs I did, Hymne à l'amour, I did it in Paris. It's a duo thing, so I didn't do there. And the one called Your Sweetness, it's co-written by Terri, Lyne, and me. And it was around a jam. We played some stuff with John and her as a trio. And then we edited it and we add some layers afterwards. And she did the vocals and I did the electronics. So basically, and the rest of the tunes, they were just recording, 2 or 3 takes. And that's it.
Wow.
And I don't think I did edit. I don't think I did edit. I think I kept the solo as they were played. I didn't take any solo from another take or whatever. I took the whole song.
I think this actually brings me to a point that's going to come up a lot when we talk about your music, and that is the rhythmic viability that you bring to the table is scary. I mean, I like whatever project it seems that you put your feet into, there's an element of cerebral rhythm or rhythmic precision that is, honestly, it's a little scary. It's and when I say scary, it's scary as in like it's so good, like I get scared of it. Because even when you're just like improvising or blowing, and we'll talk a little bit about this project you have with Frank in a bit, but it's like that seems to be a really consistent theme throughout your musical career, is this level of understanding of rhythm and rhythmic placement that is just so precise. Can you maybe talk about your relationship to rhythm?
Yeah, for some reason, I love rhythm. I always connect really well with drummers. It's not a coincidence, I guess. And I love drummers, and I think they love me too. However, I like harmony also a lot. So I would say that's the 2 big foundations of my playing. But with rhythm, you can do anything, and rhythm makes sense, gives sense to your speech, to your story. With notes, yes, but I would say for your students or for everybody, notes are not that important compared to rhythm. With rhythm, you can express everything. Because rhythm is, to me, I mean, it's just my opinion. I'm not saying that I'm right. But to me, rhythm, this is how you get moved and how you move people and how you tell a story. I mean, the notes are important, but the most important thing is rhythm. I mean, just do the experience. If you play the right notes with a bad rhythm, it's going to sound bad. But if you play approximately the right notes, but it's perfect rhythm, then it's going to be like, wow, I was moved to, right? And this is a lesson I learned very quick in my career by playing salsa music, for instance. Salsa music, it's very basic in terms of harmony. It's usually 1-4-5 or 1-2-5 with very arpeggios, very basic arpeggios. But the way you fret them with a timbalero and all the percussion things makes it good or bad. And I think that was a lesson.
Do you think some of your, let's call it facility with rhythm, comes from your mathematical mind and your mathematical background?
I would say, I don't know, but I would say that it probably did help me. This mathematical, scientific mind helped me probably to get faster learning stuff and to understand stuff. Then there's no shortcut. You need to practice. And before I played in this funk band or salsa music, I wasn't that good at rhythm. I probably improved fast. That's kind of sure. But I worked hard and I was so passionate about it that I didn't count my hours.
Absolutely. So
I hope my English is good, by the way. It's understandable.
Oh yeah, it is. It's fine. If you say anything like terribly, terribly wrong, I'll just say the word.
Correct.
Yeah.
Please.
Like I think you said couch before. Anyway, so how long did it take the album to come out from the time you write the first song to distribution? What was that time window like?
Oh, the first song, it was, I played those songs. I played some of those songs before already, like Tribal Poem, maybe in 2005 or 2006. I remember at Berklee, I played some of the tunes already with musicians. So I knew already some of the songs. I mean, whereas Terri, Lyne, and John, they just discovered them on the spot. So I don't know. It depends which songs, but it takes some time. It takes at least 3-4 years between the writing, recording, and then release of the album and tour. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what it was like to release the album? So was it a label? Was it self-distributed? What was that experience like?
Yeah, I signed with a label, French label called Plus Loin. It was a good one at that time. And we had some journalists showing up for the release. The release was in Paris, and it was nice. I mean, we did some concerts with Terri Lyne. She came. I used a French bassist, but she came to play some concerts for the release also. We did some festivals and some clubs, so it was very inspiring. I mean, I didn't tour much with this lineup and with this project. After that, I toured more with other projects that didn't have an album, actually, which is funny. So, but to answer your question, the release was great, and I think, we had very good press. So.
Excellent. So I'd like to talk about another project you work on, which is the CH3 project.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really exciting blend of jazz, hip-hop, ambient, and original arrangements of the music of Robert Glasper, Herbie Hancock, and Niels Frahm. Can you tell me a little bit about this project?
Yeah. Did I send you the links towards the new album or not? Not yet, maybe?
I don't think the new album, no. But we can absolutely include the links in the show notes here for the podcast.
No, because it's not released yet, and we're still mixing it.
I'm getting a preview. Yeah.
This is what I meant. Because compared to the first album, French Stories, it's more a band project.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, this is my songs, this is my artistic direction, but the bassist and the drummer, who are French, we've played a lot with them. We went to Mexico, went to Eastern Europe, we're going to South America next year. So we've been touring a lot before recording the first album.
And when is the release?
End of this year, hopefully.
End of this year. Okay, cool.
Yeah, but we need to be able to play concerts, because there's no point in releasing an album if there's no concerts, depending on the crisis. But it's a very, very personal album, and I cannot be prouder of the music and of myself, and not as a pianist, but I think it really projects my work and my art. I don't know, my universe. I don't know, mon univers. I don't know you say in English. My world. Yeah. It's just it's like a photography of who I am right now, and I love it. So there's some rhythm things that you will probably like. What I call multimeters. Yes. It means there's a song like that goes. There's one bar of 3/4, then you go to 5/8, then you go to 11/8 or 11/16, whatever. But there's a logic to that. The melody first, and then harmony, and then rhythm. And anyway, and the goal was to play free, very flowing on top of it, and not like very, So I have that. I have also some arrangement of Massive Attack, Teardrop, and also some of Nirvana. Come As You Are, Barbie Girl. I did arrange that on my way in, 13/8. I mean, and that's plus fun. Some song of mine. And on top of it, we made it produced by an American producer named Charles Birchall that I met in Boston. And so he assisted us during the recording, and is now mixing the album. And So it was like a very great experience. It's been a great experience so far, this album.
Absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about what you described as multimeter. So what you're talking about is not polymeter, but having time signature and meter changes within a song.
True. Exactly.
Right.
It was something, because usually you can have a section in 4. I did that on French Choice once. I have a section in 4, and then I move to a section in 3. I mean, you have that on Dave Brubeck, for instance.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
In
take
and
5.
Out. I mean, there's
take 5. They do it in 5. Then don't they bring the solos into 4 at one point?
Maybe. So maybe, but I know on another track they do 4 and they go to 3. So usually you do, a big change, but it's one section in one time and another section in another time.
You know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Money by Pink Floyd. The guitar solo's in 4, but the actual groove is in 7.
7, true. So, and it's cool because it's like a change of harmony. You move to another world, because rhythm is like harmony, I would say. It's a color. It's a different color. So I was fascinated by Logan Richardson. I don't know if you've heard of him. It's a sax player, alto sax player, Logan Richardson. And we did some sessions when he was in Paris. And his music was really multimeters, like one bar of what, one bar of something else. And I love the color. And I said, why you don't try to hear something in this way? And I don't know, it took me some months, and I came up with this song called Further, where the metric is changing. And I did write another tune called Soli, which goes 4-4-3-4. But everything is not mathematical. It has to have a music in there.
Raison d'être.
Une raison d'être. It has to have a strong melody to make sense. I mean, we're not doing mathematics. I don't like that. I'm not touched by that. I want it organic.
Yes.
So Further and Soli are the two we do. And we do that also on Barbie Girl. We go from 13-8 to 4-4 and then to 5.
Of course you do. I cannot wait to listen to it.
I will send you the link afterwards.
Amazing.
So you have it tonight.
Fantastic. So you play the piano, Fender Rhodes, synthesizers, Hammond B3, clavinet, vocoder, and here's where things get really interesting. You execute real-time audio processing using laptops.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about that last one? What does it mean to do real-time audio processing using laptops?
So So I've done it a little bit like vocoder, and now I'm leaving a little bit on the side because it takes a lot of mental resources, and I find myself limited when I have to think about too many things during a concert. But the thing is to process, for instance, what I did is just to record, for instance, some cymbals or some bass. You record it, and you treat it in real time on your laptop, for instance, using Live, so you can sample it, for instance.
So to be clear, you have other musicians you're on stage with playing. So if we have a bass player playing, we have a drummer playing, you're taking audio signals from those instruments during the concert, taking out pieces of what other people you're on stage with in the moment are doing, putting them in a laptop, and then
manipulating it. So either you play it back or you transform it, and then try to play it back with a USB keyboard. And I mean, it's more, I take it more as an improvisation, experimental improvisation. You don't really know what the result is going to be. I mean, it's because the way is what they play at this moment, you don't know, first of all. It's improvising. So, and then you use this idea, and this idea may make you think of something else on the piano, and then you play something else. And, it's just a real-time improvisation using technology. But as I said before, it takes a lot of mental resources. So for now, I left it a little bit aside, but I can't wait to try again because I really like this process. It gives you, it's like sound design, but in real time. in a way, or you know.
And I think part of the artistically interesting parts of this in terms of process is that normally when we think of sound design, we think of really capturing a sound and then listening to it and crafting it and shaping it into something with intention.
True.
Whereas when you're doing this in real time, you can't stop the concert and say, all right, guys, I need half an hour to get all my sounds together and then we can keep on playing. There's sort of an element of surprise and an element of chance in terms of how it comes out.
Yeah, and embrace. You have to embrace it. Yeah. And it's like improvisation. You play a phrase. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to play, and you have to embrace it, and then to use it, and to move forward. And so it's the same. And I love that. It puts you in a situation of urgency, of real-time composition. And yeah.
It's a really fascinating process. So when you are doing this computer manipulation, do you have any backup systems? Or if the computer goes down, let's say the computer crashes for some reason, like that's it, you're just going to keep on playing your piano or your keyboard, whatever you have?
No, I don't have a backup system, but it's never really crashed or whatever. The only thing that can happen, but very, very, very few times, it's with the duo that we're going to talk about in a minute. Sometimes we had some click problem and the click wasn't really synchronized. And so I just resync it and it's easy, but it happened very few times. But in this case of sound design and real-time processing, it didn't have a problem. No, it's more my CPU. My CPU can crash more.
So let's talk a little bit about that. So when you're playing in a larger band context, not a duo, but a band context, to make sure that your samples are going to correctly align rhythmically with the music, you have either a tap tempo function or a sync tempo function, where you're able to get your computer on the same page as to where the pulse or the beat of the song is, where everyone else is playing in real time. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, no, it's easier than that. Okay. If I use like rhythmic samples with a duo, for instance, KH2, we mostly use clicks that we have in our ears. So we know we are the click, we follow the click. And so we are with the samples, rhythmically speaking. For CH3, when I use samples, rhythmic samples, I usually introduce them before we play. So we hear the tempo throughout the sample.
Got it. Okay. So I think I understand now. So what you're saying is when you're playing in the duo project, which we can go talk about now. So this is a duo called... could you actually remind me of the name of the duo?
KS2.
KS2 duo. This is with Frank Agulon and Cédric Hanriot. Frank is a crazy drummer. He also has a wife who is a crazy singer. Incredibly talented bunch over there. And you guys play in a duo formation, so it's just drums and piano. And what you were explaining before is that so that you can set up samples to play and augment the sound of the duo, you guys have a click track playing so that those samples will trigger and play at the correct time, and you'll know when they're coming to be able to musically and artistically anticipate them?
I don't think. I think, no. We have a click track.
Yes.
Okay, that goes, and we follow the click track, and the samples are synchronized with the click track. Right. Therefore, we all are synchronized. Oh, maybe this is what you said before.
I think we're saying the same thing essentially.
Okay. But the thing is, like, maybe we can talk about that. So I'm using Ableton Live, and we didn't want like a fixed form. So there's some sections of the tunes that are fixed. Let's say for the verse, and the chorus can be as many times as we want, and then I push a button to move forward, and we do that. And sometimes we don't have a click. Sometimes it's like a free improvisation, so the click is just shutting down. So we're trying to use Ableton Live different ways, and not to be squared and to be too fixed too much with electronics, because that can be a drag, actually.
For sure. So I'm just going to break that down for listeners at home. So essentially what's happening is, if any of you at home have ever played music or seen someone play music, you're going to practice a lot of the time with a metronome, which is going to click. It's going to click at a generally fixed rate of speed that you're going to determine ahead of time. So what Cédric is talking about is for a performance, having a click. Now, the reason why he was saying it can constrict you is because, let's say you have a song and you're going to have the click go for 4 minutes before you know the next song you're going to play for 3 minutes is going to be a different click speed, at which point you need to change the click. That means you only have those 4 minutes of time where that click's going to be playing. And as a jazz improviser, I wouldn't say the last thing you want, but one of the last things you want is someone telling you this is how long you're going to be able to play from X to X because of a click. So what Cédric has set up in terms of the technology is that he can use samples, so pre-recorded musical elements or pre-generated musical elements, that he can play that will synchronize with the click for him and Frank to play with. And then he can kind of go into a journey where nothing's going to happen in terms of samples, but the click is going to continue on. And then when he and Frank are ready to go back to the sample, then he can actually press a button, which will trigger that sample to come back in line and in time with the click, so that it's a much more open format and allows for a free improvisation section or sections in between the triggering of the samples on the click.
That's true. And of course we can get long, but we can go also short.
Yes.
Because there's some nights you don't get inspired on this section and you just want it for bars. And some nights you just have something good idea, so just develop it for 20 bars. So we want to keep this freedom.
Absolutely. And so you guys have actually recorded an album, which had a very interesting concept to it. It was talking about the experience of one day. Can you talk a little bit about that album?
Yeah. So we actually, the idea of this duo was from Frank. Frank asked me, if I wanted to join him and to put together a duo. And I was like, wow, that's fantastic. I've never, did a duo with a good drummer and such a great drummer. It's going to be awesome. So we thought about this idea of day, and we said, okay, to prepare the recording, we're going to think of, different sections of the day and maybe write a few elements, music elements, maybe rhythms, maybe melodies, maybe chords, anything that can make us think of a moment of the day. And this is how it started. And then we saw each other. We rehearsed at this place for a few days. And he brought some ideas. I brought some ideas. We brainstormed. We tried them. We add more layers. We found some sounds. And from there, we went to the studio. And the studio was actually the creative time, because we spent 2 days in the studio. It's long time, two full days, just two of us, working on the tunes, playing the tunes, different vibes, different constraints. So we're gonna play the same tune, but with something different. This time, I'm not keeping the rhythm, you're keeping the rhythm, different roles. And we had like a lot of rushes. And then from there, we decided to take this take and to edit it. And so this process took a lot of time. I think it took us like a year, seriously, a year to get all the tracks together and then to be able to mix it. But the next album was going to be recorded this year. It's going to be different. It's going to be more like a normal album because we already have the tunes and we already know what we're going to do. So we just have to go to the studio, record a few takes, and then we'll have it. But this time it was interesting, but very long, very long.
It's a very interesting album. It has a feeling. The whole album globally has a very interesting feeling. It imparts something. I'm not sure what it imparts, but it definitely has a message. I'm not sure what that message is. But yeah, maybe I'll go back and listen to it a couple more times to see if I can figure it out. But it has a very interesting, intriguing feeling to it. So you guys have actually also done some live virtual concerts in this formation during this this podcast is being recorded in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. So everyone is around the world in many countries being forced to or required, I should say, to stay at home. And you guys have been actually bringing music to the people virtually. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was interesting. So we did a real concert in August. We have to mention that in a festival of Juan-les-Pins D'Especial in south of France. So anyway, so we did a real concert there, but we were supposed to play a concert in Chaumont in France. And because of the crisis and lockdown, they said, well, instead of, postponing the concert or canceling it, how about you guys come and there's no audience and we do a video recording of the concert. So we did, and the concert went online, and that's how it was interesting. It have in between like recording album and concert. So we had to, to be in the music. We couldn't be like, with the headphones, and we had to be kind of performing in front of an audience, even though there were nobody. But at the same time, we had the quality of being in a studio, and so it was comfortable in a way. I mean, of course, we miss the audience, but yeah. And I also did other things that I recorded, as I told you before, like solo piano concerts for Paraguay and Argentina. So I recorded two original repertoires because I never had repertoires in a solo piano before. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that it's the best thing, but if it can bring some art and some joy and some, to people, at least, we help.
Absolutely. The last project I want to talk about, I just want to get just a little inside scoop on this. So you worked on 8 songs on the Grammy-winning album Beautiful Life by Dianne Reeves. Can you talk a little bit about what your role was in contributing to that album, what that experience was like to work with? There's some big names on that album. So can you talk a little bit about that whole experience?
So you mentioned a lot of names that actually didn't meet. So they're on the albums. We played on the same tracks, but we didn't meet. Because back then I was in China. I was touring with a French drummer. And I remember when we went back to hotel after the shows, I had to work on Dianne's album. So she or her producer sent me some music or some ideas. And then they say, well, just record what you hear or whatever. So I plugged my headphones in my hotel room and I was, playing, finding some sounds, maybe some chords, some roads and stuff. And then I went to bed, and the next morning we went back on the road, and that was crazy, man. That was so it's how it worked out, actually. I worked remotely for that. So all you hear from me, the rows and all the synths, I recorded them on my laptop in China. Funny story. And then I did also the charts. I mean les partitions, the charts, right?
Yeah,
the scores. For not for everybody, but I think for the rhythm section, so for the drummers, bassists, and additional pianists, and they did record in New York, I think, and with Dianne. Yeah.
So fascinating. So you're on tour in China, and at night after you perform, you go to your hotel room, You
Oh
plug
man.
in your keyboard, you put your
Yes.
headphones on, and then you're recording music for a Grammy-winning album
Yeah.
in China
Well,
on the road.
we didn't know it would
It's
win.
incredible.
I mean, obviously nobody would, but first of all, I was honored to be part of the album anyway, even if the album didn't win. And I did my best, but obviously it wasn't the best situation for me to do that because, as I said, I was in China. I remember the Wi-Fi was really bad, so sometimes I wanted to send back an idea that I had, and I couldn't that night because the Wi-Fi didn't work. So I was like, and obviously you're in a rush. You want people to hear what you wrote soon, and blah blah blah. So it wasn't the best situation, but I think I managed it, and yeah,
Yeah,
and when I heard it won a Grammy, I was like, wow, that's incredible. So I got my little poster. I think I have it here.
fantastic. That's so cool. So, see, we're going to move on into the second part of this podcast where we talk a little bit about lifestyle,
Hmm.
practice, creativity, and
Yeah,
performance.
yeah.
So,
Could we maybe have a little talk about Polaroid songs?
oh yeah.
It's a project. It's another project of mine, which I really like, and we're gonna. So it's a trio, jazz trio, bass, piano, keyboards, and drums.
So this is
And on top,
Polaroid Songs is the name of
yeah,
the
of the,
group or the project?
of the project. It's a
Okay.
project,
Polaroid
and
Songs.
exactly. And on top of this trio, we have a string trio, so
Okay.
cello, violin, and viola. And this is basically my buddy Bertrand, who's bassist, and myself, who put together this project. And we decided to describe the feelings we had on tour when we were on tour. We went on tour a lot together. It's part of CH3, for instance. And we went to Asia, we went to a lot of countries, and we wanted to kind of pay tribute to the different cultures we met. So we wrote a song about Indonesia. We wrote a song about Japan, where I'm using some Japanese voices as the starting point of my songs. He used like the clave, the Moroccan clave, as a starting point for his song about Morocco. Anyway, and so it's a great project. We haven't recorded yet, but it's going to be probably at the end of this year. But what I wanted to tell about this project, we're going to extend it to a symphonic version with a symphonic orchestra. And we wrote, Bertrand and I, for symphonic orchestra, and it was supposed to be played in November, last November, but because of crisis, it's postponed. I think in October, next October, we'll have the premiere symphonic orchestra, and then we would have probably 5 or 6 other concerts on top of that, and hopefully more afterwards.
Wow, that is
So
exciting.
yeah, for me it's huge because writing for symphonic and playing with symphonic is your own repertoire. It's like, so it's another step for me. I mean, playing with bands, I love it, with big bands, but playing with symphonic, your own music, whoo, with this project, I'm very excited. As much as with the release of CH3. I mean, those are the two main things for this year.
That is really exciting, and I'm really, really excited to either watch video or listen to the recording
You
of
will.
of that whole thing. That's going to be really cool. Wow.
Yeah, man. I'm excited too.
Yes. So that's going to be 40 or more musicians all playing your like symphonic orchestra would be 40 or more, correct?
No, it's more. I mean, I think it's more like 70 or 80 musicians. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's a huge band. So yeah. So it's kind of a crazy project. But the funny thing is, like, as crazy as it sounds, it seems to interest more people than the sextet or more
Yeah.
realistic projects. Because For instance, I was talking to Herbie last week, and I remember I told him about the duo, about the trio, and then I talked about this symphonic orchestra project, and I saw it hit him like it does for almost everybody around me. When I talk about this project, it's like, wow, it's going to be, and it's truly, it's a lot of work, though. I mean, writing for symphonic orchestra, as you can imagine, I mean, it's yeah, but it's as a musician, I would say, and maybe we'll talk about that afterwards in the second section. But as a musician, as an instrumentalist, you have also to know how to write music, to arrange music, and to orchestrate music as much as you can, because it's part of our job, and it makes us better musicians after that, because we can hear the music more, in the globality, and less what the piano does, but what the piano does in context with the music, and
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about understanding the role of the piano. And the more arrangement you do, you begin to understand the potential and the role of different instruments. And then you understand everything, like you said, from a global perspective.
Definitely. And then, as you or I, because I know you play the guitar, we can transpose this conception of the full orchestra to our own instruments. For instance, you can decide to play different voices, to play maybe 2 or 3 voices, something that play bass, something that play chords, something melody, and you orchestrate it so you can play it on the guitar, and that becomes fascinating because you can adapt it to your instrument. And yeah.
Super cool. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that project.
Please.
Looking at performance and creativity. For lifestyle, how many hours of sleep do you sleep a night, and how do you find that sleep or lack of sleep impacts your creativity and your performance?
Well, I'm very sensitive to sleep. So I would say if I don't sleep much or enough, the creativity goes down for sure. I mean, I know people that are force of nature. Most of my friends I go on tour with, they go out late, and next morning they're super tired, they haven't slept, and the night when it has to play, they play super well. In my case, it's more difficult. I would say average of 8 to 9 hours, which I understand it's already a lot, but this is how I operate. So
scientifically, you're right where you're supposed to be, I think. So
okay, yeah. So yeah.
Have you ever tried mindfulness or meditation to help you with creativity and performance?
Well, it's funny. I just did some meditation practice before we talked. So
hey, me too.
Yeah, I did like 15 minutes or something. Oh yeah, man, it helps for sure. I mean, it helps everything. It helps your mind, your body. So obviously, it helps your music and your creative, because you feel so much better in your own body, and the relationship you have with time, with people, with your feelings. I mean, if you meditate, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, definitely helps, and I would recommend that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you find that exercise or movement impacts creativity and ability to perform?
So again, I know people, I won't say names, but even famous that don't exercise, they they don't work out or exercise, and it's perfectly fine for them. In my case, I discovered quite lately that I need to exercise, and at least try to exercise every day. And I have to put that in my routine, I would say. So I try to walk at least every day, or to work out, to lift some weights, or to swim when I can, or to bike. So to me, it's very important. It's part of it's like meditation, food, and exercise. It's
sleep
it's a
too.
package.
Yeah, sleep.
And sleep. And this is what you have a hard time to do when you're on tour. Tour is great, but you have to prepare yourself before tour. You have to, the rest of the year, you have to sleep well, to eat well, to exercise and stuff. So when you go on tour, you'll be ready. And because on tour, you usually don't eat very well, you don't sleep much, you don't exercise. So it's So you have to compensate that before.
And when you're exercising, when you're going for a walk, do you have a target heart rate that you're trying to achieve? Like, do you notice at different levels of exercise, you get different levels of clarity in the focus of your mind?
That's interesting. I've never experienced that, but I'd love to hear more about that. I used to do that when I was running a while ago. I had like, this watch that controlled my heartbeat. But now I'm doing it more like, casual, and I'm not trying to. I want also the exercise. My problem can be also if I take it too seriously, it may prevent me from doing it again. So I wanted to keep it fun and to keep it almost like it's fun. Yeah, it's fun to work out. And sometimes if I don't want to work out much, I treat myself. I say, okay, for today, I try to adjust because it's me, it's my functioning. Because I know if I'm too hard with myself, I won't last. It's like meditation, it's like anything. Or even piano, if I decide to practice too much, I mean, at some points I'll be like, I need to, and then it does the opposite effect.
It's all about the balance, and it's all about keeping it fun and keeping it just light, not serious.
Keeping it fun. To me, this is the point. And even when I teach music and when I see people trying to improve themselves in music, I say, you will improve the best if it's fun for you. If it's always like a sacrilege, it's like a sacrifice. No, it's not going to work in the long run.
Yeah, so sacrifice would be the translation of that.
Thank you.
For practicing, at what times of day do you like to practice the most?
So there's time you like and there's time you can. So you have to consider in life.
Well, both. So which time do you like? Which time can you?
Okay. No, but it's interesting to say because so far I loved mornings. I'm a morning person when it comes to energy and mind energy. But because of my activity, sometimes I have some Zoom or Skype stuff in the morning or some business side. I can practice only at night or in the evening or in the afternoon. And I find myself kind of liking it at this period. So I'm happy because I'm more flexible now. If the morning is busy, then I know that I can practice maybe more in the afternoon. So I would say in my case, the morning is probably the best. Then it would be mid-afternoon, and sometimes after dinner, evening. If I'm not too tired from my day, the creativity is there. So there's not only one period of time during the day where I can practice.
But you enjoy the mornings most.
Yes, it's like meditation because you don't have many thoughts yet. Your mind is super focused. And then you work on something, on a rhythm or on a scale or a technique exercise, and right away you go into, you're not like, oh, okay, so this concert got canceled. So what if, whatever. On the business side, because we're talking about music, which is the best part of our business. But then when we talk about business, agents, labels, promotion, presenters, foundings, and etc., that I deal also, I manage also that. It's another part.
How many hours a day on average do you practice? And then how many days a week on average do you practice?
Okay. So I would say
when you're at home. So sorry, let me clarify. So you're at home, regular routine, not on tour. You have time. You're not preparing for an album. This is like for you to maintenance. Mm-hmm. How many hours a day do you practice? How many days a week?
Optimal.
Yeah, optimal.
Would be 2 to 3 hours per day. And let's say 3 to 4 days per week. That would be more would be cool. Less would be okay. Yeah, I don't believe in 8 hours practicing. If this is a question.
No, it's not the question. No.
but I'm just also mentioning that. I don't think so. I don't believe in that. I mean, it's going to be inefficient for sure. So
speaking of efficiency and also being effective, what is the maximum length of time that you can practice on one day and it remains effective?
It depends on how many breaks you take. It's more about breaks. Of course, you can't work in a row. You can't work like 8 hours in a row.
Well, let's in a row. How many hours in a row is effective for you?
In a row, it's not even an hour.
Really?
I would say 30 minutes in a row.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And I heard Brad Meldo, the pianist, talking about that. And he said that if you practice an exercises for 20 minutes really well, he's totally tired and he needs a break. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. I mean, you can be playing and having fun. You can do that for hours without being tired. But if you really practice something, 20 minutes is a lot. And you can accomplish a lot in 20 minutes. So me, I would say 30 minutes would be, and then a little break and then go back.
And then looking globally over the course of the day, what would you say your maximum amount of hours practice to stay effective is?
I haven't counted, but maybe 4.
4? Yeah.
I'm talking about practice again. I'm not
not playing.
Not playing with other musicians, but practicing. 4 is already a lot. And I read a lot about that from classical musicians. And most of them, they say it's 3 to 4 hours. It's already a lot. Practice again. So for a professional musician, maybe 2 to 3 hours is already something, because we usually need to teach or to rehearse or to go for concert or business. And for students, maybe not professional, an hour a day or an hour and a half a day is already a great amount of time. It's more how steady you do it than 8 hours one day and then not doing it for a week.
Yeah, the way I like to explain it is that the number of practice days is as important as the number of sleeps in between practicing. Mm-hmm. Because if you practice for 8 hours on one day a week, then you don't practice on any other, you're not going to remember it.
Sure.
2 weeks later. But if you practice for half an hour every single day and you sleep well, it actually will write the information a heck of a lot better into your brain. One of the leading sleep scientists, Matthew Walker, was talking about how your brain will actually replay fine motor movements while you sleep. So whatever practice you do during the day, your brain is actually going to replay and rewrite again into the disk, that's your brain, at like 4 times the speed you practiced it at. So it's going to be sped up. It's going to rewrite all that stuff in there. So I always bring that example up when people are talking about, oh, well, if I practice this wrong once and I practice it right, 4 times, it's not that bad. Yeah, but what happens is when you sleep, that turns into practicing it wrong twice and practicing it right 8 times.
That's true.
So spreading those practice days out, I think to your point, is exactly the way to do it. If you can find half hour a day, that's going to be way better than 2 hours every 3 days.
Definitely. And with anything, I would say. But for music, definitely. I agree. Even though some days you need more, you want more, you say, well, I'm curious about singing. I just checked some Foray or some Chopin music that I want to practice. And I'm like, I don't have much time, but whatever. I think we also have to get disciplined in our work, in our practice. That's also something difficult.
Another interesting concept around practice days, I was talking to jazz guitarist Rez Abbasi about practicing, and he was talking about actually instituting and creating days where you are not allowed to play to maintain. So I think he said he takes 2 days a week where he does not allow himself to touch the guitar. But the reason for doing that is because then the other days when he gets it, creativity, performance, everything is so much bigger because he's had those days of rest.
I agree. I mean, it's of course.
Very interesting.
Yeah, but I do kind of the same. I mean, there's some days during the week I don't practice or I don't touch my instrument. Usually on Sundays, for instance.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So at least one day per week, and it really helps. I'm not doing it consciously, but it's unconscious. But I feel so much better without touching the instrument at least one or twice per week. Yeah, for sure.
Throughout your life, when you look at practice, what has come the easiest to you in music?
I don't get the question.
Okay. So let's say some people have perfect pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We could say that pitch identification comes very easily to them.
Okay.
So what comes easily to you?
That's a good question. Is there anything? That's why I didn't get
know.
The question, because I was like, do I understand well? So what comes easy? What should I say? Maybe rhythm.
Rhythm.
Rhythm. Yeah, I think I get it quite quick and quite easy if I understand well. Again, it's just a matter of having it right in my mind, and then I can do it very, very quick. I would say rhythm.
And what has been throughout your time, so from even when you were a student, what was the thing that was the most challenging for you to really understand and integrate?
As a musician, in music, maybe memorize songs. I'm talking about complicated songs and long songs. I'm not talking about a lead sheet with one melody and a few chords, but maybe because I haven't really trained myself on that. And so sometimes for some projects, we need to do a clip and we need to play by memory. So it takes me sometimes to get the page, to try to get a visual memory of it, and then and then practice that. So because I think this is but I don't see anything else at the moment.
And have you ever injured yourself playing music, like tendinitis or anything like that?
Thanks God, no.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank God, no. Yeah, dude, I'm happy.
And do you take any preventative steps to stop yourself from developing anything like tendinitis? Like, do you stretch? Do you make sure you're hydrated? What do you do to make sure that doesn't happen?
So, I mean, I drink water for sure. I drink at least 1 or 2 liters per day for sure. That's for sure. I mean, it's also for the mind. It's very important. When I don't drink, I'm like, it's almost like I don't have air. I can't breathe anymore. So I need for sure water. Stretching, I do stretch a little bit, but not that much. And I don't play that repetitive things. For instance, when I was at Berklee, we had those practice rooms where there were those pianists, like classical train and blah, blah, blah. And they were playing a lot of scales all the time and blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, I couldn't do that. I couldn't play that long, the same scales and the same technical exercises. So for me, I wouldn't be that patient. So it won't happen to me. So maybe this is a variety, la variété in my practice that prevents me from tendinitis and stuff, because I'm not working more than maybe 30 minutes in technical issues, and then I move on to harmony or to rhythm or to something else. So I guess I can sometimes feel my arm after a concert, for instance, if the piano was very hard, the action was very hard, and I had to force a little bit, but never to the point to tendinitis or stuff like that. So.
And to explain for listeners at home, when Cédric's talking about the action, he's talking about how difficult it is to press the key of the piano down for the mechanics for the hammer to hit the string to generate sound. So some pianos are easier, meaning the keys offer less resistance than other pianos. So what he was saying is sometimes his muscles get a little not happy when he's playing a piano that's sort of fighting back a little bit.
That's true.
Right.
Even though I think I have the right technique and I'm using the arm and stuff, but because I'm not used to those heavy pianos, sometimes it can hurt.
You're not
but
used to the resistance.
It's rare.
It's muscular too. It's not. It has nothing to do with the music. It has nothing to do with the technique. It has everything to do with if you've been lifting 20-pound weights for 3 months, and then one day you lift 40-pound weights, you are going to be sore the next day.
That's true. And to be fair, I would say that the very few occasions it happened, it was on pianos, because most of the great pianos, they either too light for me for my taste, or they perfect action. I mean, heavy, not too heavy, but the ones that are very heavy are usually the honky tonk piano, like very bad. So it happens less and less. It didn't happen for years. So.
Excellent. So this was more back in the day when you were playing suboptimal pianos.
Yeah. Or maybe, it happened in Poland when I played like 3 or 4 years ago. I played on an upright piano, and oh my goodness, when I touched it, I knew it would be a terrible night. But I think it hurt a little bit my hands, but I think we did some good music. We made some good music. So this is what counts, right?
Excellent. So how do you stay creative, or do you stay creative? Do you take any steps to stay creative?
I think to stay creative, as we said before, it's balance, is also to be interested in other things than music. Maybe to read, maybe to watch movies, maybe to hang with people, maybe to be spiritual, maybe to do something different, because music is fed by something, by life. And so, to be curious about life, to be curious about science, about techniques, about other fields, and not about just music. I really feel very boring. It happens rarely, but when I'm with other musicians who just talk about music all the time.
Oh no, has this podcast been an hour and a half of you feeling bored, Cédric? How are you doing?
No, but it's a podcast, but and I like it, but let's say you're on a tour and the musicians who are with you, they only talking about, have you seen the new bass? I got new strings. Have you seen? And they watch concert of bassists. No, I'm just talking about bass, but it can be with any instrument. And at some point, for me, it needs some depth. It's music is nice, but music is one thing in life. It's not life. You're right. So
variety. At what time of day or times of day do you feel the most creative?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say probably, it depends, but I would say probably evening. Probably evening.
Before or after dinner?
Before what?
Before
dinner?
Or after dinner?
I don't really know. Probably before dinner, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in real life, if you play concerts, the audience doesn't want to know when you feel creative. You're on stage, you have to play.
Yeah.
So that's always what I think, right? That's a reality. We have to be pragmatic, even though we have our preferences. But
have you ever burned out? So burnout is playing, touring so much that you don't even want to touch the piano. Yeah,
it happened a few times, but it did happen less and less because I'm getting older and wiser.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, I'm not joking. That's for sure. It happened. When would it happen? I think like 5 years ago, I was touring with City of Poets. You mentioned Clarence Penn before. And I was playing with him. So we did a tour in America, 2 weeks tour.
Didn't I catch that tour in the city?
Yeah, it was in the city.
Yeah, I saw you play that tour.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it was that with
yeah.
Donny McCaslin?
Yes. Yeah.
Indeed. And then I went to Europe. I played a couple of weeks or 1 week. And then right after, I played with my trio in Asia, Japan, China, South Korea, which was great. Obviously, as a musician, what can you ask for? Is you play concerts, but there were no gap in between. It was America, one day after Europe, and one day after Asia.
So how long
It's
were you
like
on the road for
at least 3 months
in a row? So playing
in a row.
almost every night.
Yes, and obviously, as you can imagine, like the jet lag,
Yes.
going from America to Japan, not even thinking of the travel because the travel tires you up so much. So I wasn't really considering that back then. Now I would say, okay, I have a tour here and a tour there. I'm going to wait a little bit for the Japanese tour, for instance. But back then I was, crazy to tour everywhere, all the time. And then you go back and you feel no energy and no passion anymore. No passion anymore. So
Ah.
you or I who love music, you wake up and you don't want to go to your instrument. You don't feel any connection with it anymore. And you're like, what's going on? It's a new life's coming. And I was in shock. I was almost, scary of it. And I think I stopped playing the instrument for a month or something like that until the passion came back. But it's very scary, man, what burnout can do. It's have you been burnt out? Have you burnt out?
I burn myself out every other week, Cedric.
I don't believe you. Really?
Really? Oh no, I do. I'm writing 4 books, doing a podcast, running a business. I need to eat and sleep. I burn out at least once a month for a couple days.
Really?
Really, truly.
But dude, you have to take care of yourself.
I'm working out. I got a meditation app. I'm doing keto diet. No phones in the room at night when I sleep. Trying to get 8 hours. Just trying to do everything around to maintain a high level of output. But like you said, you had this experience and you learned from it. Now you know to space those tours out. I'm definitely learning to space projects out in a more friendly way. So I'm not working on 20 things at once, for sure.
True. And take some times off, also some days off. That's very important. Not thinking about your business, and that's at least once per week. I mean, you have to take at least one per week. It's impossible not to do that, or you're gonna. I mean, you're young, you have a lot of energy, but the older you're gonna get, the harder it's gonna be for you to maintain this regime.
Absolutely.
So, and you'll be more efficient working a little less. I'll suggest you a book after that. I have a good book about that.
Oh, if you want. Can you suggest it now? I'm sure anyone who's working with burnout would love to hear about it.
It's upstairs. I don't remember
okay. You don't know the title. That's fine.
But I give it to you, and then you post it afterwards on the forum or chat.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Show notes, burnout book. We'll put it in.
I mean, there's many, but this one is particularly good, and and it says no matter how busy you are, you need to rest. I mean, you need to take one day and stuff. They say better than me. I mean, you'll be more confident in what I'm trying to convince you now.
It's definitely it's an interesting thing to do, to try and find that balance.
But it's also a good thing, man, don't get me wrong. It's great to want to work and want to succeed and to have this power and this strength. It's great because I don't think many people have that. Most of people, they want to have their job and, they get paid and that's fine. And now we're back home and, we are passionate about what we do. So it's great. So the only downside is we have to manage ourselves a little bit so we can still have the fire,
Faut allumer le feu. And that's going to be my last French rock song joke for the rest of the day.
Nice.
Allumez le feu, Johnny Holiday.
Yeah, Johnny Hallyday.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
you got it. Anyway, so let's move on to talking about performance. Have you ever experienced performance anxiety?
Yes.
Okay. What does it feel like when you experience performance anxiety, and how long does it last? Like, does it last up until you start playing, first song, second song, the whole way through the concert?
It depends how stressed I was before. If I was stressed for the night before, it doesn't last much. But if I was stressed already for a week, then it can maybe last the whole concert. That being said, I've been stressed less and less. Again, I can't really remember when I was that stressed. I don't really remember. Maybe 10 years ago I was still, but now I'm managing my stress. And also, as you get older, sorry, I don't want to look like a it's a granddad, but you get more experience. And you know more how to manage, obviously, your stress, and you know more about yourself. You know you can handle the concert, even maybe you're not in good shape, or even if there's some people, important people in the audience, and because you already experienced that. So after a point, you can let it go easier when you get older. Really, age with me, this is what it brought to me: more peace and less anxiety. Because of experience, because you've done many times the same, the concerts, the recordings, the teaching, that you let it go easily. I mean, in my case, we'll see with the symphonic. Maybe with the symphonic it's going to be a stress again, but no. But I believe in you prepare yourself well. There's no reason that something bad's going to happen. I mean, what can you do more than prepare yourself well? Nothing, right?
Absolutely.
Then it's fate.
Cédric, was there anything that we did not talk about that you would like to mention before we wrap it up?
What would I say? I guess we talked a lot. We didn't talk much about practicing. I mean, what to practice, but that's another subject, another topic which is big. But yeah, maybe we can have another conversation in the future about that.
Well, when you say what to practice, that's always going to be very varied on where someone is in their musical progression. Right? So like what someone who's needs to memorize finger number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 needs to practice versus someone who needs to play games with a metronome, put the metronome on the and of 2, clicking once every 3 measures. That's two very different things. But do you maybe have any ideas for global practice tips that anyone could look at doing?
Yeah, well, what I like to do is to divide my practice time into different topics. And for instance, take the harmony topics, the rhythm topic, the technique topic, the sight reading topic. I mean, this is really helpful. And depending on where you are, which level you are, maybe on on the rhythm thing, you can just work with the metronome on 2 and 4. Technique, you can just practice your skills, maybe in contrary motion. Harmony, you can, practice, I don't know, drop 2 or drop 3. I mean, it's just my way of working and organizing my thing. I know that there are other colleagues that don't like that. They just go on the spot and they just, ask themselves, what do I need to work on right now? What are my weaknesses? What are the priorities? What is the repertoire? But me, I try to keep something steady in a way and have different topics. So I have probably 6 or 7 topics: harmony, rhythm, technique, ear, sight reading, stuff like that. Independence.
And do you try and hit all 7 topics within a 2-hour practice window?
Depends. I experience again, but I wanted to do it one, but I don't think I can. So now I'm going to do probably through two practice. sessions. So the whole round.
Mm.
And yeah.
That gets into a little bit like, do you know the drummer Mike Mangini?
I've heard of him.
I think he has the Guinness record for fastest hands. He also plays with Dream Theater,
Okay.
the progressive rock group.
Yeah.
He talks about creating a practice calendar
Mm-hmm.
where he knows he's going to practice certain things on certain days of the week. And that way he keeps everything moving around.
I think it's a good idea. And I saw that in a different practice book, different methods, and by classical pianist again. And I think it's good. It's good. It's good. So I think you have to be steady, but to be able to study different topics at the same time and the same week. But every week you repeat the same topics, kind of, But you yeah.
But that would not necessarily be the best case for someone who's a beginner and who's trying to master fundamentals. Like if they're just trying to play a C chord, what they should focus on is breaking that one C chord down into different ways of approaching it. Play one string at a time, play one note at a time, play all together, play, start fracturing the chord out into pieces, play just 1 and 3, play just 3 and 5, play 1, 3, 5, arpeggiate up, arpeggiate down. I think that just like before when we were talking about going larger and then also going smaller, the same thing can be applied to musical concepts in practice, that it's not always about hitting 7 topics. For you and your development where you're at, it is about hitting 7 topics. But it's also important to recognize that at some point in someone's musical development, it may be about approaching one topic in 7 different ways.
Yes, that's a good rephrasing. Yeah, definitely. And I would add that sometimes when you have a very important concert with a very difficult repertoire, I will have to focus on this repertoire and maybe on this type of chords or maybe on this type of independence. And for a week or 2, I will have just to focus on that and forget about my practice routine. So you also have to be flexible. And but what you said before is totally right. Yeah. So I was just describing how I do, but my way of doing is maybe not compatible with a beginner, practice.
I think it is ultimately, like for a beginner, you could assign maybe clapping exercises, just to acknowledge rhythm and pulse. That could also work on sight reading if you're teaching someone to read ahead on music. So I think there is a way to approach that sort of divided aspect as a beginner. I just from working with a lot of beginners, think that maybe it would be 1 or 2 things. Maybe 2 things to give some, like we keep on coming back to variety, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. And then when they get a little better, maybe you can add more sophisticated things in the topics and have another topic.
Right.
And then you build up.
Absolutely.
And then you have 7 topics. And then here you go. Here you are.
And then we'll all be as good on the piano as Cédric once we reach our 7 topics.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm, I don't know. Yeah, probably. Who knows?
My personal opinion, and I'm sure many others as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Cédric Hanriot. You can find him facebook.com, Cédric Hanriot. That's CEDRICHANRIOT. YouTube.com, Cédric Hanriot Music. Website, CédricHanriot.com. Instagram, Cédric Hanriot _piano. Thanks so much for coming on.